The school hallways were almost silent when Ms. Adeline Gray locked her classroom door for the evening. The fluorescent lights above hummed faintly, flickering in the way that always made her skin crawl. She bent to pick up her bag when she noticed it. A folded square of yellowing paper pushed under her classroom door. Frowning, she crouched and picked it up. The paper was rough, as though torn from an old journal. The handwriting inside was jagged and uneven, almost carved into the page. "She's next." Adeline froze. The letters felt heavy, like they were written with something more than ink. Her first thought was that it was some cruel prank, one of her seniors trying to scare her. She shoved the note into her bag, muttering to herself, "Ridiculous." But later that night, the sound of her phone ringing woke her at 2:13 a.m. The voice on the other end was trembling. "Ms. Gray? It's about Emma. She's gone." Emma, one of her brightest students, found dead in her bedroom. No signs of a struggle. No cause of death. Just gone. Adeline's blood ran cold as her mind went back to the note. The words, "She's next." It wasn't a prank. And deep inside, a dark, nameless fear whispered, someone knew. Someone planned this. The following morning, Adeline arrived at school early. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she pushed through the halls with a single purpose: to convince herself last night was a coincidence. When she reached her classroom, however, her heart dropped. Another folded slip of yellowed paper waited under the door. Her hands shook as she bent down to pick it up. For a long moment, she didn't want to open it. Her chest felt tight, as though the words themselves would reach out and choke her. Finally, she unfolded the note. "Mr. Calloway." Her stomach sank. Mr. Calloway was the school's janitor, a kind old man who had worked there longer than she had been alive. He often stayed late, whistling through the empty corridors. "It's just a joke," she told herself, though her voice cracked even in her thoughts. Just a sick, cruel joke. She crumpled the note and shoved it deep in her pocket. But later that afternoon, the police sirens outside the school proved her wrong. A teacher burst into her room, pale-faced. "Adeline, did you hear? Mr. Calloway collapsed in the boiler room. They say he's dead." Her chair scraped across the floor as she stumbled to her feet. Her mouth was dry. The note burned hot in her pocket like an ember. 2 letters. 2 deaths. Not a coincidence. That night, as she sat alone in her kitchen with all the lights off, the truth weighed on her like chains. The notes weren't threats. They were announcements. And each one was a promise carried out in bloodless, inescapable silence. By the 3rd day, Adeline was barely sleeping. Every creak in her apartment, every shadow in the corner of her, I felt like it was watching her, waiting for her to break. She told herself she'd imagined it all, until she found the next note. It was waiting for her on her desk this time. She hadn't left the room unlocked. She had checked every window. Yet there it was, as though it had been born inside the wood of the desk itself. She opened it with trembling hands. Sarah M. Her vision blurred. Sarah Mitchell, one of her quietest students. Adeline staggered back, clutching her chest, whispering aloud to no one. No, not her. Please, not her. That evening, when Sarah's body was found slumped against her bedroom wall, eyes wide open, lips pale blue, Adeline snapped. She couldn't stay silent anymore. The police station smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. Detective Mallory, a square-jawed man with lines etched deep into his face, sat across from her, flipping through the notes she'd brought. "So you're telling me," he said slowly, "that you've been receiving these letters before each death occurred?" "Yes." Adeline's voice cracked. "Don't you see? Whoever's writing them knows exactly who's going to die. They're not coincidences." Mallory raised a brow. "Or," he tapped the edge of a note with his finger, "you wrote them yourself." Her blood ran cold. "What? No, I would never." "Ms. Gray." His tone hardened. "The handwriting analysis is clear. These letters match your handwriting." Adeline's chair seemed to shrink beneath her. Her hands curled into fists, nails digging into her palms. "That's impossible. I didn't write them. I swear." Mallory leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Then explain to me, Ms. Gray, how these letters appear in your classroom, Your desk, your home, always before the deaths. You're the common link. Adeline couldn't answer. Because deep inside her chest, under the panic, under the dread, was a more terrifying thought. What if he's right? What if it really is me? The police released her after hours of questioning, but the weight of suspicion clung to Adeline like a second skin. She walked home through the rain, her shoes heavy with water, her heart heavier with doubt. When she reached her apartment, she left the lights off. Sitting in the dark, she spread the notes across her table. 5 slips of paper, each one a death sentence. She traced the jagged handwriting with her fingertip, and for the first time it felt familiar. The way the S curled sharply. The uneven slant of a T. Her own grading style. Her own letters. "No," she whispered, shoving her chair back. Her hands trembled. "I didn't write these. I didn't." Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She hesitated before answering. "Ms. Gray." It was Detective Mallory's gravelly voice. "The handwriting experts confirmed what I suspected. These letters," he paused, almost savoring the words, "are written in your hand." She pressed the phone tight against her ear. "That's not possible." "Maybe not in the daylight," Mallory muttered. "But people do strange things when they don't even know they're doing them. Sleepwalking. Dissociating. Maybe you're writing these in the dead of night, and you don't even remember." Her throat tightened. "You don't understand. I'm being framed. Something is wrong." He cut her off. "Until we know otherwise, I suggest you don't leave town." The line went dead. Adeline slumped into her chair, her pulse racing. Her eyes wandered unwillingly to her desk, where a pen lay across an open notebook she didn't remember leaving there. Her breath caught. On the page was a half-finished sentence, written in her unmistakable handwriting. "Next will be." Her scream tore through the apartment as she slammed the notebook shut. She couldn't bear to see the name that might follow. For 3 nights, Adeline tried not to sleep. She drowned herself in bitter coffee, blasted the television until dawn, even walked circles around her apartment whispering, stay awake, like a mantra. But exhaustion is a cruel predator. It waits. It pounces. On the 4th night, she drifted off against her will, head slumped over the kitchen table. And she dreamed. In the dream, her hand clutched a fountain pen, gliding across yellowed paper in frantic strokes. Her wrist jerked unnaturally fast, the letters spilling out as if someone, or something, guided her bones. She tried to scream, tried to stop her hand, but it kept writing. The words were cruelly clear. "Daniel Pike will die tomorrow." She jolted awake with a strangled gasp, sweat dripping down her neck. For a fleeting second, she prayed it was only a nightmare. Then she looked at the table. Her pen was still in her hand, and beneath it lay the very note she had just written in her dream. Her stomach turned to ice. The name, Daniel Pike, was one of her colleagues at the school. "No, no, no," she whispered, shaking her head violently. She tore the note into shreds, shoved the pieces down the sink, ran the tap until they swirled into nothing. The next day, she avoided Daniel at work, clinging to a fragile hope that destroying the note might change the outcome. Maybe if the words never reached the world, they wouldn't take root. But at 5:42 p.m., she got the call. Daniel Pike had collapsed in the faculty parking lot. His lifeless body sprawled across the pavement. Adeline dropped the phone. Her ears rang. The world tilted around her. It didn't matter if she hid the letters, burned them, or tore them to pieces. The moment the ink hit the page, the death was already written. Her hands were cursed. Every stroke of the pen was a killing blow. Adeline's apartment became a prison. She stripped it of pens, pencils, markers, anything that could write. She even unplugged her laptop, terrified that typing a name might carry the same curse. For a brief moment, she thought she had beaten it. Days passed with no letters, no deaths tied to her. She dared to hope. But then, the notes returned. One morning, she opened her fridge and screamed. Taped to the milk carton was a folded slip of paper. Another was wedged between the pages of her Bible. Another fluttered from her bathroom mirror as though it had materialized from a steam. The handwriting was always hers. Always the same jagged strokes. She tried burning one in her sink. The ashes curled and died. Hours later, the name on that note, Lucy Harker, her neighbor down the hall, was found lifeless in her shower, water still running. Adeline collapsed to the floor, her stomach heaving. Destroying the letters did nothing. Hiding them did nothing. That night, in an act of furious defiance, she tried to test the curse. She picked up a pen with trembling fingers and scrawled just one word across a sheet of paper. Dog. She tore it into 100 pieces, flushed them down the toilet, and laughed bitterly. See? Nothing. You don't control me. Moments later, a howl pierced the night outside her window. She rushed to the glass just in time to see a stray dog stagger into the street and collapse beneath the glow of a lamppost. Her laughter turned to choking sobs. It wasn't about who she named anymore. It was about anything she named. Every word she wrote demanded a sacrifice. And deep inside, a terrifying realization took root. If the curse was escalating, if it was feeding on the ink and the letters, it would not stop until it claimed the one name left unwritten. Hers. Adeline no longer left her apartment. The whispers of the world outside felt like vultures circling, waiting for her to write the next word. She taped her windows shut. She unplugged every lamp. She let her food spoil in the fridge, too afraid to walk to the store. But the notes still came. They slipped under her door when no one was in the hall. They appeared in books she hadn't opened in years. Once, she woke to find a piece of paper clenched between her teeth, as though she'd been gnawing on it in her sleep. The words on that note had been the same as always, a name. And within hours, the person was dead. Adeline's sanity unraveled thread by thread. She stopped fighting, stopped pleading with the police, stopped screaming into the night. She sat at her table with a single candle burning, surrounded by the scattered corpses of notes she couldn't destroy. And then one evening, she found it. Not under her door, not in her dreams. On her pillow, a folded piece of yellow paper, still warm as if freshly written. With trembling hands, she opened it. There was only a single word. Adeline. Her vision blurred. Her body went cold. She dropped the paper as though it were a venomous thing. The candle beside her flickered violently, its flame bowing lower and lower until smoke hissed into the air. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She wanted to scream, to run, but her limbs felt heavy, pinned by invisible hands. The shadows in the corners of the room thickened, pressing closer. Her last thought was not of escape, but of resignation. The letters had always been leading here. Every name, every death. It was always going to end with mine. When the neighbors found her the next morning, Adeline Gray was slumped across her desk, eyes wide, a half-written note beneath her hand. It read only 2 words. I'm next.